And we're back. Thanks for joining us on the Coruscant Nights podcast. Again, we're happy to have you here. My name is Cooper, and alongside me, as always, is Mark,
Hello there.
Jack,
Hello, everyone.
and our very, very special guest. Guys, please welcome Steph to the podcast.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome, Steph. We're happy to have you here. Steph is a supporter of our podcast and generally likes Star Wars and is getting into it. And we figured it was appropriate for her to be joining us here this evening. So, guys, we're breaking down the finale of season 3 of The Mandalorian. How exciting! But before we get into that, of course, I just want to go over our socials quickly. You hear me say it every week. We're on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Patreon as well. Go follow us on all of those platforms. It's all under Coruscant Nights. Okay, let's get right into it. So this was chapter 24 in The Mandalorian's journey. It was titled The Return, directed by Rick Famuyiwa, and had a runtime of 41 minutes. There was a lot to go over in this episode. It almost felt like a very basic plot, but had so much stuff in it that just made it really interesting. But before we go into the specifics, I want to get a gist of what you guys thought about it. So I'll start with our guest, Steph. What were your general thoughts on the episode?
I genuinely did quite like it, but it did kind of fall a bit flat for me. It did feel a bit anticlimactic. There were a lot of loose ends. It was enjoyable, but I feel like it could have been more.
Yep, very good. Jack?
Yeah, look, I think because of the season as a whole, it didn't feel like a finale that kind of lifted it up. So I think I was a bit underwhelmed by it. It was very Disney happy-going ending, which I think could have been a bit more extreme or something, something eventful happening maybe. So yeah, kind of in the middle.
Okay. And Mark?
I agree with the other two. It was a good episode overall, but given what we had, especially last week's episode, it kind of, as Steph said, felt a bit anticlimactic.
Mm. I'm gonna take a contrary step. I definitely believe that there were a lot of inconsistencies, maybe misleading steps, false steps, but I thought overall the episode was really good. I think it was filled with some of the best action, some of the best cinematography we've seen in Star Wars. Um, and the character interactions, the fights, everything felt really powerful. So I was quite a fan of this episode. Jack, you don't seem very impressed by that.
No, I respect it. I just maybe like when you said the best action scenes and powerful, I thought the Moff Gideon fight was kind of. It didn't feel like it had that much like depth to it. It kind of just felt like they were just throwing hands every now and then he randomly just grabbed the dark saber hill and whatever. But like I just felt like there was no emotional impact to that fight at all. To be honest, I felt it was quite lame. Yeah.
I mean, there were other fights in that episode. It's
Yeah,
not just I know you're a Mothman, but like
man. Yeah, the Mando fights were cool, but like even the armorer coming in with like her tools in the air looked a bit
oh,
cringe.
that was cool. What do you
I
mean?
like
No,
that
I agree.
too.
I think it looked kind of cringy with her
No.
coming
It made
down
no
with her
sense. She was
tools.
going in like this, like she was Superman or something. Like,
Yeah,
Oh, and Bo-Katan was going in like
I
this,
thought it
looking
was
like a
cool with the
Jedi.
dark saber, but the
Yeah,
tools not so much.
I
yeah.
think that episode had my all-time favorite shot when Bo was flying and pulled the dark saber out and just went like this. I loved that.
Yeah,
That was so
I
cool.
thought
It
it was
reminded me
cool.
of Rebels so
I was
much.
about to say that as well. Reminded me of
Yeah,
Rebels as well.
yeah.
You know what my favorite shot was in that episode, to be honest?
What?
It was when Axe Rose was flying through the storm. I really liked that.
Oh
With
yeah,
that
yeah.
shot, I really liked that shot for some reason. It just looked, I don't know, unique.
No, that was good. And, for someone who definitely bagged on him last week, it's good to hear
Exactly.
you say something positive about
He
him.
was like my favorite character in this episode, to be honest.
Yeah, he was good. He took
He was
kind
pretty
of
cool, wasn't
command.
He
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
All right. So the way I'm going to go over it this episode is I'm going to go over the plot and I will ask questions to the rest of the people on the Zoom call here and they can chip in their opinions. So we pretty much start where we left off. We're following Bo-Katan. Paz Vizsla has just died, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But they're kind of still being chased through the tunnels by the troopers, and they send out oh no, Axe Woves has already gone through up into the storm, and there's kind of communication back and forth, and the TIE interceptors and TIE bombers have been launched, and Axe has gotten the fleet up in the sky to basically bombard or come back down into the atmosphere. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on this shot. It was a very long take. As the Mandalorian fleet goes down, the TIE fleet comes up and starts bombing the ship. Mark, what do you make of that?
I thought it was a nice shot. I liked how they timed it so well that the Empire, or if you can call them the Empire, didn't even realize that all the troops had already evacuated the ship. And I thought that worked quite well for them.
Yeah. What about you, Jack?
Yeah, look, I thought the way it was shot just made it look so like smart play by Axe and the Mandalorians. How like usually it's the other way around, like they're usually caught out. But yeah, it was shot beautifully and it just looked really cool.
Steph, do you have anything to add?
Well, I also had it written down as one of my favorite scenes. I just thought it was so cool because it almost felt like it built the tension almost because it showed how close the battle was almost like right there.
Yeah, definitely.
To each other. So I really liked
Definitely.
it.
It was a very cool scene. And then we haven't really seen the effect of the TIE bombers in Star Wars that much, at least the devastating damage they can do, beside the Night of a Thousand Tears, which we saw in a flashback scene in the Book of Boba Fett. Like, they're really powerful. They're what they fire out, or is it torpedoes? Iron torpedoes, maybe? Yeah, they're quite powerful. So it's good to see the TIE ships still being featured in Star Wars in this sort of media. Where do we go next? We
I
go.
wanted to quickly mention, if you don't mind,
Yeah, go ahead.
I felt like the way I know there were TIE bombers there, but the way the interceptors just completely demolished that capital ship kind of to me seemed a bit strong for like TIE interceptors. Like they're just light fighters essentially, and like
I
you would
think
think that ship not only has a bunch of armor but a bunch of shields as well.
But I
Mm,
think because there wasn't anyone manning the ship to like kind of initiate that, it was Axe on his own trying to like fight.
Yeah, but like wouldn't there still be shields up, surely?
that's what I was thinking.
And like I said, the ship would be armored, and that doesn't need anyone to be there for.
Mm. There's quite a lot of them.
There were
Yeah,
I think that's a bit of a nitpick.
yeah,
a
probably.
little bit, a little bit. Um, we cut back to the Mandalorian, who's being taken by only two Imperial troopers to be interrogated. And of course, what else would you expect from Din Djarin but to fight his way out with the help of his little pal Grogu? Um, and it was cool to see them fight together. We actually got to see them fight a lot together in this episode. But
Which was cool.
it was cool. It was really cool. But in terms of plot convenience or plot direction, in terms of what they were building up last week, that this was going to be an important encounter, what did you guys think of the outcome?
Okay, I a little disappointed. I kind of had did that like Grogu was gonna come save him like a lot later. And I thought it was gonna be like, I don't know, torture going something of Din. I just thought it happened a lot earlier on than I thought in the episode. And I just could have eventuated to something a bit more impactful, I reckon. So yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
Well, for
Mark?
me, I kind of last week assumed that he would get out relatively quickly. Like I didn't think they would spend much of this episode with him being captured or even killed, as some people were thinking. So it was a lot earlier than I expected, probably, but like I said, I knew it would happen pretty early in the episode.
I was almost thinking it was actually going to be quite later. I thought we were going to not get much Din in this episode because I thought it was going to be more having to rely on Grogu and the other Mandalorians to try to fight to save him rather than him save Grogu. But I don't know. It was kind of just a rushed weird scene. Why would you only have 2 troopers on one of the most powerful Mandalorians?
Yeah. Yeah, that was probably my main takeaway as well.
Let's just go with Moff was too cocky with his troopers.
Yes, yeah. And we'll get into Moff's story a little bit later and how he kind of is involved in this story in this episode. But we do get a really, really big fight scene between the Imperial troopers and the Mandalorians who have jumped out of dropships and are joining Bo and the armorer. And was Axe there? I can't remember. No, he wasn't. He was on the ship.
Mhm.
And a big fight happens. Bo's slicing through people with the dark saber. Armor is hitting people over the head with hammers. Cosca Reeves even got a cool sliding shot over the platform and then used the knee rockets like Boba Fett. Thought that was
Oh,
pretty
I thought
neat.
that was Bo.
No, that was Cosca.
Oh,
I thought it was Bo when I first watched it, but on my second watch, it didn't have the night owl markings. Yeah.
that scene, by the way, I was not expecting them for that to be an entire aerial battle. I thought they would all land on
Happen
the
on the
ground
ground. No,
and have
did
an
that last
actual
episode.
land
Did that
battle.
last. Yeah. I mean, we did get some land battles, but again, later. Din recruits R5, someone who has probably had more plot convenience in the whole season than Moff Gideon has, which is really unfortunate. And he asks him to deactivate the barriers one by one. Very much, I think we might have said this last week, reminded me of the room in Naboo for the Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fight in episode 1. In the fight scene between the Mandalorian and the Imperial troopers heading into Moff Gideon's command center, what did you make of the fight in general? And do you maybe agree with my point that the Electro staffs kind of felt like cheap lightsabers?
Yeah, I think a little bit. The scene, I guess, it did kind of slow it down a bit, or it wasn't my favorite scene, but like it wasn't too bad, I reckon, but it could have been better, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. I just thought it was pretty funny that Mando was using a shield, even though he has Beskar armor, which is immune to blaster bolts. Thought that was pretty funny.
I think the shield and the laser sword, whatever you want to call them, was like
Baton.
yeah, literally the baton. It reminded me instantly of the Finn fight with Phasma and like just the whole sequels with those things.
Yeah.
And that's just an L, so
Well,
yeah.
for me, actually, it completely reminded me of Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Scout Troopers.
Okay,
That's all I could see. So for me, I thought that was a good thing.
that's a good thing then.
But I do agree with Cooper. I didn't actually think about the fact that he was using a shield, even though he has Beskar armor. I hadn't thought about it.
Being more conservative.
I also, if I may say, found it quite funny how it was kind of like levels going through, defeats 2, goes to the next one. I found it interesting how every time he went through the next room, if you want to call it a room, he got a new form of equipment.
It shows his versatility.
Like a video game.
Yeah, like he started with, well, just what he had, his fists, then the knife, the baton and shield, so on.
That's a good analysis, Mark. That's really good. Then we get this really, really creepy scene, and it kind of tells us exactly who Moff Gideon is. Din and Grogu walk into this room, and it is a bunch of clones of Moff Gideon. Now, in terms of what kind of the intent for Moff has been throughout the seasons, it's there now. We understand he wanted to clone himself. Maybe he didn't realize he wanted it to be himself until he realized how easily the Dark Troopers were taken down in the season 2 finale. But is that not really creepy that this man wants to clone himself just to control the galaxy?
Yes, it is.
I think Palpatine was literally his whole thing was to do that. And then the clone, but I just kept thinking how he's basically just trying to be like a Jango Fett with having himself be the donor of all the clones. So I didn't think it was that creepy, but I think because he's like his intent is malicious. So that's probably what makes it worse if they're all Force sensitive rather than
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
himself, you know?
Again, with Star Wars, though, running the theme of cloning,
Yeah, what is all with these shows recently in cloning? Yeah,
I think they just need to tone it down a bit with the cloning. They
yeah,
need to think of something else.
yeah.
Hey, well, Bad Batch is finishing next season, so we've got to enjoy it while we can. Okay. Where should I go to next? Because there's kind of a bit that happens.
Like the moth
Um,
thing at the start with like
Um,
is when he was tracking Din and Grogu.
oh
then
yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Yeah, so Moff is informed that the fleet above is taking down the capital ship, and then he's like, "No, but the Mandalorian escaped. I'll deal with the Mandalorian," and then walks off. And then Din and Grogu walk in and see it, and then Moff throws a fit and is like, "You killed my children. You killed me." It's like before they could even have their first breath. But you had a chance to like defend them. You said you were gonna deal with Din, and then you just kind of left and came back.
You
How's
know what
that
made it better? It is knowing that he stormed out and then turned around, went back to hide and wait for him to come.
Quite literally, quite literally.
Silly.
But during that scene with the cloning, I didn't even realize that they were being killed, if you will. I honestly thought they were coming out to attack them.
Hmm?
Yeah, I don't know how did that happen? Like, how did they all the things
The
break open?
explosive of the ground, like they just like exploded. Like, what do you mean? Like the water pressure was too much,
Mm.
Yeah, well,
exploded it.
that is very convenient that it happens just as Grogu and Mando walk through.
But often,
Huh?
didn't he like do something with the control pad?
I don't
Din?
think so. Did he? I didn't
I think
notice him
so.
do it.
I thought he did. Yeah, it
I
was
mean, it's quite possible he did, but I probably just
Grogu
didn't
was
catch it.
Grogu was just like got that creepy.
I just thought that Grogu just got scared and ran off.
No, I think he went to the control thing first, but yeah, it'll be interesting.
That does make a lot more sense if that is what happened.
Yeah.
We kind of still stick with these three characters. Mando and Moff start fighting, and it's hand-to-hand combat, which is a nice change. And the Praetorian Guards come out and start looking like their last Jedi selves and can't even kill a small child who's just jumping around.
To be
And
fair,
I know you guys hate on The Last Jedi, but I feel like you have to hate on them in this episode even more because what were they doing stabbing their swords up into a gap?
well, to be fair, Grogu is pretty powerful now with the Force, so it's
What,
kind of
pushing away
difficult.
swords?
I
Yeah,
think
I
I
mean,
think
if he pushes away the swords, they're not going to be able to get him.
I'm thinking more. I agree with Cooper on this one actually more, which is a first
Rarity.
rarity. I agree with him. Like, I'm not hating on them more than the Last Jedi because that whole fight scene should have been done better. But the one here, I felt like maybe because like they're obviously different to the ones that we see in those movies. So I think there might be like a stage beforehand, which means they're not as experienced. So they wouldn't have had an idea about someone who can like force jump and all that. But what I didn't understand is why couldn't they just cut down the rail that he was standing and jumping on,
Yeah.
then have him on the ground? Like, and I know they wanted to do only puppeteering with him, but when it comes to fight scenes with Grogu, it is so bad. It looks weird as hell.
Yeah. I completely agree. The fight scene between Moff and Mando was interesting because it was Beskar versus Beskar. And it was kind of we haven't really seen that before. It kind of almost felt like it wasn't really threatening because even Moff was firing rockets from his wrist that didn't do any damage to Mando. Um, I I thought it was interesting, but at the same time, when you build up something like Beskar, you've got to have a weakness because Moff felt pretty much invincible in this
Mm.
episode until he died, and that's the same with Mando. Every week he doesn't feel a threat because of the Beskar armor. So it'll be interesting to see how Beskar plays a role moving forward into the Mandalorian franchise, but also into future shows as well.
Yeah, but see, the thing that I think is hilarious about that is how anytime an enemy, apart from Moth in this case, has Beskar on, they always kill him easily because they just go underneath the helmet and in the grooves. But like when
Yeah.
it comes to like the main characters, they just seem to not know where to shoot them or hit them. So it's kind of like it just depends on the writing and where the story wants to go, because that fight could have been ended in 2 seconds if Din just put a knife under his helmet.
Yeah,
But
true.
yeah.
And I know
yeah.
that the whole point of Beskar is that it's very strong, but even with the weapons, I've noticed there's an increasing amount of just lightsaber slash darksaber proof things, which kind of to me just makes a lightsaber slash darksaber seem not as cool as it has been,
Mm.
because like it just isn't effective.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that kind of fight scene kind of contributed to how I found the kind of episode a bit anticlimactic. Like, we had this character that, you know, it's been there for 3 seasons, he's a bad guy, and the fight scene just felt kind of pointless and lame. It could have been so much better. Yeah, with high stakes even. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. I want to return to you, Steph, actually, quickly. What did you make of the Bo-Katan versus Moff Gideon fight scene that happened shortly after the one with Mando?
Okay. Yeah, okay. So I because that was the one where the darksaber was broken, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So I actually liked how it was broken, because
Okay.
I kind of thought like a main kind of theme for this episode is that it kind of explored how the Mandalorians kind of were strongest when they worked together. And it was kind of evident with, you know, like Grogu and Mando and Bo-Katan are working together at the end kind of. But so I feel like the darksaber is kind of embodies like the Mandalorians' old ways. So by destroying it, it kind of showcases that, you know, they can now move forward, and because it did establish last episode that the Mandalorians' kind of main drawback was they're fighting between each other. So this kind of establishes that, you know, there's not one leader, can be everyone working together. So I thought it was actually a good thing.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing when I saw it. I'm like, because this is the one thing that has united the people, that people like just follow. They don't care whoever's got the power is the one wielding the dark saber. And now without it, this thing that is so historic, it's like they've got to rely on something else now. They've got to rely on not blood, not who has the dark saber, but maybe who. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to go from here, because it's clear Bo-Katan's going to be the ruler. But I mean, how are they going to establish it? Are they going to go back to doing a bloodline thing, which would kind of be unfair, or will it become a political, maybe elections? I don't know.
What? Okay, so what is up, to interject onto this next point? What is up with they're not finishing the storyline of the last episode's title being the spies?
Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so last episode was titled The Spies. We speculated who that could refer to, and I think a lot of us in the Star Wars community thought that it was going to be the armorer, based off of, um, the kind of ambiguous and confusing nature of her shots. I'm just remembering back to that one scene. It was like 30 seconds long of just her flying the ship up into the atmosphere. Very creepy, very strange. And the timing as well seemed like, oh, okay, we're setting it up for her to be the spy. And even in this episode, when you didn't see her with the fleet, it's kind of like, oh, okay, she's not there. What happened? But then she kind of announces herself saying, oh, I'm here with your reinforcements, Bo.
Mm.
So in that sense, and we're looking at the spies, and the obvious spy is going to refer to Elia Kane. But it's titled The Spies. So who is the other spy?
And not to mention, Elia Kane was only in it for about the first 10 seconds.
Yes, why would you have a whole episode dedicated to one person who's in it for 10 seconds?
You know what my point on that one is? I feel like they almost, at the time of when they filmed everything and had their storyline set out, they were going to do like the armor thing, but maybe they just backtracked on it last second, since she kind of just felt so. She only like showed up when she voiced herself over the ship scene, and then her with going down with the tools, and that was it. They could have easily just reshot that in like 2 seconds because she didn't even you barely saw her until like the end in the forge and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, did they have an idea on using her as like initially to be the spy, or was it like meant to be the pirate people or even Axe woes? But maybe they're like, oh, it's too obvious, so they just didn't like continue
Yeah.
it. Didn't think about it. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Look,
Here's a theory. What if it was one of the people on that Imperial Council, Shadow Council?
that's what I was thinking.
Hmm.
It could even be Moff himself. I mean, he's not really a spy, but if you think about it, he was basically just using them for resources for his own cloning thing that he wanted to do.
But once
And he
again,
was turning them all against Thrawn so he could try and get his little clone force.
Mm.
you don't want to wait a whole season to like find out that answer.
Yeah.
You're annoyed by
No,
that.
I don't think it would be that interesting, but it's just some kind of theory.
Just while we're on the topic of titles, what did you guys make of this episode's title? I thought it was a bit strange, and I
Yeah.
didn't really know what it referred to. Mark, do you have?
It was called The Return, wasn't it?
It was called The Return.
So, I mean, I guess the obvious thing is that they've returned to Mandalore.
Mm.
So, what what could the other one be? I mean,
That's what I
you
mean.
could say that it was Mando and Grogu returning to Navarro, perhaps at the end, but that doesn't
Mm.
seem very, groundbreaking.
Well, yeah. The thing is, I actually went crazy. So I went crazy when the title came out also because I was so confident. I was like 95% sure that
Yeah.
means Boba Fett was showing up.
Yeah, so did I.
And then he just didn't. So that's probably why I think that's the whole issue with this episode was because of not just the hype that us fans created, but also like the stunt doubles and everyone was hyping this episode to be so much more than
I
it.
really don't know what that stun double was doing when he said
Well,
that.
maybe he's just got
Yeah.
hate on him probably. So I'm just like, why do this? Why? Like, uh,
Yeah. We'll get back on track to the plot because we're almost done.
Whilst we're going to plot, if you don't mind, I want to quickly go back to the fight between Bo and Moff.
Yeah, sure.
Two things. One about the Darksaber is as opposed to Cooper and Steph, I personally was not a huge fan of the destroying the Darksaber. I I think it's just the fact that they've built up so much importance on it, and also that it's been like, in the Clone Wars and Rebels, it's been such an important aspect of these shows, and then it just goes. But the thing is, I have a funny feeling they might be reforging it in the new forge that they've created at the
Oh.
end.
yep.
So I do agree. I like what you guys said about how like the Mandalorians want to work together and that sort of thing. But I do have a funny feeling that they might reforge it.
Yes, I agree with Mark on that one. And a
Okay.
new kind of hilt maybe, and kind of like to symbolize a new like clan that they kind of have.
Okay.
And as for the actual battle, I felt like, 'cause going back to the whole invulnerability sort of thing, it felt like it was just they were trying to push him towards the edge.
Yeah,
That's all that I noticed. Like they were shooting him, hitting him with the Darksaber, basically just pushing him closer and closer to the edge.
what was that Moff death? Because continuing on the
Hang
plot,
on.
that it's quite literally almost that though.
Yeah,
Almost,
no, okay, all right, yeah, okay. So Moff does. It looks like he dies. I don't think he's dead, but looks like he dies.
They don't confirm it, do they?
I thought it was pretty cool that Grogu and Bo and Din were all teaming up to like inflict damage on him. Damage. What did you guys make of it? Um, uh, Steph, what did you make of it?
I did like how they like working together, and I think it like kind of looked visually cool with like all like the fire and everything. But I kind of do wish that Bo-Katan did get to like stab Moff or something, just for like a sense of finality, especially because you know we found out that he betrayed her really badly and destroyed all her culture and planet and stuff. So I would have really liked that instead of some kind of random explosion. But
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
What about you, Jack?
If you're going off how how he died. Technically, who got the final blow was technically Axe Woves, the ship coming down and initiated the fire. So technically, he got the final. But like, yeah, it was. I saw after the episode, I was kind of like, okay, he's probably not dead. But then that happened like at the end of like season one, where the tire got shot down, and then after it shows him coming a lot like out of it.
Mm.
So like they kind of already faked the thing instantly. The second one had him captured and escapes. The third one, they can't make him fake die and then bring it back when Thrawn's coming into the Ahsoka show. That would just he just won't have any like authority. I feel like that's his kind of story done,
Yeah, I guess so.
which is a shame because he's like my favorite character in the Mandoverse. But
Mm.
also the way he just stood there and was like, ah, I'm dead, but like some fire when they were using flamethrowers on them. I was kind of like, no, that was so bad. I was like, what's happening here?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking as well. They'd been using flamethrowers on each other and it didn't
Mm.
seem to affect them at all. Grogu had a nice Kanan Jarrus moment and also a flashback, or not flashback, but like recall to his moment in season 1 against the flame trooper where he
Oh, yeah.
pushed the
Didn't think of
fire
that.
away from him. Yeah, I thought that was a nice callback. Mark, do you have any comments to make on that final fight between the three versus Moff?
I want to say that there's a running theme of kamikazing as the first one, and the second one of how Bo-Katan with the shield, like it's so small and she
Yeah,
thinks it's
okay.
gonna do something.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Okay. So the battle kind of finishes after Moff dies in his holy-like way. And then we cut to the Great Forge, which is being um fired up again, which I thought was a nice touch because there was such significance placed on it, especially in the last episode, and that was going to be the civilization, the home base, and how they were going to rebuild civilization from there. And then there is another cut to the mines of Mandalore, and Ragnar, Paz's son, is finishing his ceremony. Interestingly, I noted the armorer did not say, "And you shall not remove your helmet,"
I
which
noticed.
Didn't notice
basically
that.
it basically means that accepting of all Mandalorians with helmets and without helmets, and who choose to walk the way and those who don't.
All that I noticed about that is that it was very similar to a Christian baptism, and also I
Yeah.
found it kind of funny how they just tip the water on top of the helmet because I feel like it doesn't really do anything,
Mm.
but it's probably some sort of symbolic thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we get our return to Navarro and oh no, sorry, I've missed a step. And then we go to the New Republic planet. Mando's flying to the New Republic planet and he meets Carson Taver again. Basically says, "Oh yeah, we had this covered. Moff wasn't going to be a threat for too long." I doubt that if Mando didn't step in. Anyway,
Another great Dave Filoni cameo, by the way.
Oh really? I didn't notice it.
Yeah, I didn't notice him on the other episode, but this time I did. He's on the left side of the bar.
The opposite.
Okay. Mando takes interest in the IG unit head, which obviously has a memory circuit, brings the IG story full circle when he returns to Navarro with IG-11 as the new marshal, replacing Cara Dune.
Something Cooper has been waiting for the whole season. The end to this story.
I mean, I wasn't a fan of it, but I put it in my pros list, so I can't be too upset with that. And then the final shot of the episode is just Mando and Grogu chilling at their new house.
I thought this was
That's
good.
it.
And that was it episode 1 or 2 of the season when Grief gives or tells him that he has a plot of land he can give him.
I think it's episode 1.
Yeah, I think it was episode 1. And I knew they obviously wouldn't do it because it was the start of the season. But I thought it just sounded like a great way for him to kind of retire, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad that they ended up staying there because I like Navarro.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll go back there in the future. Steph, what did you make of the final shot?
I liked it. It was a little like goofy where how it just like zoomed in on them. But like for like the story of Grogu and Din, I did actually like how it like ended. Like I'm actually excited for next season. I feel like it will go back towards kind of being more like season 1 and 2 about
Yes.
Din and Grogu, but still have that like component of like the wider Mandalore culture. So I feel like hopefully it'll be a bit more balanced next season. So,
Yeah, definitely. Jack?
I think I agree with that point. I feel like this season, in my opinion, felt a bit more of like the filler season to get the other Mandalorians, like kind of their story completed from the other Star Wars properties to like sideline Din and Grogu a bit. But I feel like now when Armor has said, yeah, go off and because he's your kid and apprentice and all that, you have to go on adventures and stuff, which I felt was a bit weird. Why would you force them to go on an adventure? But okay, sure.
And
I mean,
also, I mean, didn't we all pretty much assume that Mando had essentially adopted Grogu already?
Yeah, I
was
was
that?
thinking that.
And what's Din Grogu, wasn't it?
Oh
That's
yeah,
so
we got to speak
Yeah.
about Din Grogu. Sorry.
Grogu.
So the armor gives Grogu the name Din Grogu, which makes me think that Din Djarin's actual name is Djarin.
Yes.
Yeah,
And we've
Jaren.
been calling him Din all the time.
Yeah, but everyone. Yeah, but Jaren didn't. I
No,
don't know.
his last name wouldn't be Din. Din might be like a different language for like
Oh,
apprentice
like,
or something.
Oh, it could be that. True.
well, it could just be like kind of like a crest that he takes up. Like you know how
Yeah.
sometimes the same person's name from the first name.
Mm.
Grogu, because Grogu is just Grogu, it could be like a last name when people just call him by a last name. So now he's finally got a first name taken off his dad, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that could
It
be
doesn't
it.
roll off the tongue. Grogu
Din Grogu.
Jaren would sound better than Din Grogu.
But to be fair, no one's gonna call him Din Grogu ever.
Except for that one time when Grief Karga did it at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but as in like us as a
Oh,
society and
right.
Star Wars community, we'll just call him.
Yeah.
I mean, people still call him
Grogu.
Baby Yoda.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So that was the episode. If we just go around the table quickly, I'll start with Steph. What was your ranking out of 10 for the episode?
probably about an 8 out of 10.
8. Jack?
7.
7. Mark?
I reckon I'm gonna go in the middle and go 7.5.
Okay.
And if I can quickly also say about that last scene,
Yeah.
as Steph said, how it was a bit goofy, like the circular lens sort of thing. It looked like a cartoon to me.
Yeah,
So
literally.
it just seemed a bit odd.
Very Disney.
Very
Yeah.
Disney. And no setup for the future, at least for I
Yeah.
kind of made
Last
a note
week we
about that.
theorized the post-credit scene, but
I
we're
literally
all,
skipped, and
we're
I
all
like
wrong about that.
even after the nice beat of the main credits, I literally skipped to the end of the other ones just to make sure there was nothing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
same.
was like, come on, surely,
Yeah.
like Boba Fett, surely.
Yeah.
I even thought Thrawn would make an appearance.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did think that as well, considering they've name dropped him twice in the last couple of years.
And he's coming very soon.
Yes. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I thought I really loved the action. I really loved the cinematography. As someone who loves how films look, as someone who very controversially likes Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince and Star Wars: The Last Jedi, both films I've shot magnificently. I've really appreciated the cinematography in this one.
I thought the
There were
cinematography was really good as well. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but
No,
yes,
that's
I
fine.
thought that was definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, and that was consistent throughout. And I think Rick Famuyiwa, the director, did really well with that. So, yeah, now we're done with the episode and we've gone through our thoughts. I just want to briefly discuss with you guys what our overall thoughts of the season were. Because unlike in seasons 1 and 2, it started off very mixy.
Mysterious?
Well, not mysterious, but there was a lot happening. And then it kind of diverged into one and then split off again towards the end. Whereas the other 2 seasons have been very linear about how they're going forward. It's one story and one outcome. So again, I'll start. Steph, what were your overall thoughts of the season?
Hey, I kind of felt it was almost like unbalanced in a way. There was just like character-wise, like too much Bo-Katan instead of, Grogu and Din, or even like plot-wise, like we'd have an amazing episode, like I don't know, episode 21. And then the next episode was like the weirdest episode with Jack Black and Lizzo.
Yep.
And it just really it almost felt like it was not planned properly, almost. Like I just feel like the storyline could have been reworked much better, that the more like fun episode should have been at the start. And even if the whole like Empire storyline started a bit earlier instead of a whole chunk in episode 3, that would have given at least some more plot and foreshadowed a greater battle. And I think the creators of the show just didn't do the show justice. Might have had too many ideas. I don't know what was going on, but I still enjoyed it. Cool characters and stuff, but missed opportunities, and lacked potential, I reckon. Yeah.
That's a great way to summarize it. Missed opportunities and lack of potential. That's probably 5 words that would be the best way to describe the season. Anyway, Jack, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it's the weakest out of the 3 seasons. I would put it last, obviously, out of the 3, and I think number 2 is still my favorite than number 1. I think they didn't really have a sense of direction. I don't know if it's because other people at the head of executives had to like input their stuff into it for setting up future shows and didn't let John and Dave do it, or it was actually John and Dave and they just didn't really know what direction to take it into. Or I just think they really tried to make this season about all Mandalorians, not just them, which I understand. But like, surely you could have done like a whole different show for that, and like and then you could have the cameos of Boba and Din. You know what I mean? Come to like Mandalore. And I feel like they, and especially with the short run times for majority of the episodes, it just very rushed. Then also the longest Mando episode ever was this season with Dr. Pershing. So it's like, not a show. What, like, I know why they did it, but I didn't know why they had to make it so long and so dragged. So I just think overall, it was a filler season in my opinion, and definitely wasn't satisfied. But hey, I guess Star Wars, any type of Star Wars, I guess it's good, but I'd rather it be higher quality than that season. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Yep. Mark?
I think they've both summarized it perfectly, and I would agree with everything they both said. Unfortunately, it's I had to say it, but as Jack agrees, it's the worst of the 3 seasons, which is really sad because we all waiting quite a long time for this show. And as they've said, there was so much filler, and particularly that one episode with Elia Kane and Dr. Pershing. I wasn't a fan, and I made that clear during that episode about that. And they probably could have done what they needed to with Elia Kane in probably at least half an episode. Like they didn't need to spend, as Jack has said, the longest episode explaining all of that lore and backstory about the New Republic when it didn't play that important of a role throughout the show. And I think that Grogu and Mando, as you'd expect, because the show's meant to be about them, they should have featured much more prominently than all the other characters, because that's what we all wanted to see the most.
100%. I agree. Like Mark said, I agree with all of you guys about the points you've made. I think it's probably the weakest in terms of storytelling, and the direction and the plot was just not focused at all. But one thing that I really did like, that I know quite a lot of people don't because the spotlight was taken off Mando and Grogu, is I really loved how Bo-Katan was developed in this series. She was really, really interesting, complex. Her story was deep and rooted, and she felt like she really cared about Mandalore and her history. And it's all in blood, and just everything with the Darksaber. Even I loved the way Katie Sackhoff portrayed her, and I'm glad she's sticking around. Hopefully for more Mandalorian stuff. Hopefully maybe in Ahsoka, but I was really impressed with how they handled Bo-Katan this season. But overall, I'd probably still have it as the weakest season. I'll ask one more question before we kind of sign off. I'll go opposite direction this time. I'll start with Mark. What are your hopes for season 4?
Honestly, I'd probably say maybe some glimpses of what happens with the Mandalorians and Mandalore itself. I don't really, not very interested in what happens with the New Republic. And if I do want to talk about that, then I think they should have their own show for it. What I mainly want to see is just season 1 and season 2, Grogu and Mando, and just the adventures that they go on. And particularly, one of my favorite characters actually that was in the other 2 seasons was Mayfeld. I was actually quite kind of hoping he would come up again, but unfortunately not.
Well, perhaps in the future. Jack?
Yeah, similar to Mark. I think they need to refocus what the show really, how it like became popular, and how the relationship between Din and Grogu kind of evolves over time. But I also think they this season they definitely shifted away from cameos, but then again it kind of made the world feel a bit small because we only focused on like Paz and like his clan and then Bo-Katan and then her clan and then didn't really branch out, didn't expand much. Felt like it was so I feel like in the new season they need to have implications from obviously Ahsoka because timeline wise, if it's going to be in between season 3 and 4, they're going to have big implications. And I feel like to make Thrawn and this whole like end point of the Mandoverse movie to be impactful, they need to start either taking out people we like, which I don't want to say like is a good thing, but like they need to make some sort of big threat for us to actually be like, oh, this guy's a real big deal, and we got to band together with Boba and Luke and everyone, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah,
So maybe
definitely.
big like that in the next season.
Yep. Steph, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what the others have said. I like a few new faces that, two characters could interact with a bit more. But mainly I just want some more character development, like like Din and Grogu felt quite flat this season, and I just want a bit more with maybe Grogu's history or like Din's like hatred toward droids or something. I just want to explore their characters a bit more.
Okay. I completely agree. I think we've had the history of Mandalore and the culture, and we're moving forward into reforging and rebuilding. That's obviously going to be important to see the role that Mandalore plays. But in terms of maybe where Din's headed, I feel like now that he's working for the New Republic and he was kind of mentioning going back to his bounty hunting ways, I feel like perhaps we are heading back towards season 1, where it's going to be a bit more gritty action and not childish kind of one-off fights that are easy. So yeah, I'd probably just agree with you guys, but yeah, I definitely think that we've done all of the backstory and everything. Now we're looking to the future. And I think what the end of this episode did really well was set up Mando's story heading into the Dave Filoni movie. So it'd be interesting to see how it all plays out. But that was a really good discussion, guys. I'm really happy with what we discussed. I hope you guys listening enjoyed. Just before we do sign off, I want to let everyone know what our plans are for the coming weeks, because obviously this was the finale of season 3 and we've been doing this breakdown for 8 weeks running. So we kind of don't have anything or a show to run by anymore, but that's fine because we're getting more into opinion-based stuff. We're going to talk about, actually, our next episode coming out will be about the Bad Batch and Ahsoka. We'll chat about that quickly, but then we'll go into opinion-based stuff. We're going to talk about favorite characters. We're going to do a big debate style tournament on different Star Wars topics, which should be really fun. And we might throw in a couple more different things, hopefully have on some more guests. But yeah, the future's definitely exciting. And obviously when Ahsoka comes, we'll be breaking that down as well, reacting to that, just like we did for The Mandalorian. So thanks for listening, and thank you, Steph, for joining us. We really appreciate having you on, and we're glad that you're enjoying our podcast. And I'm sure this is not the last time we'll see you on here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
All right. Yeah, I think that's it. So see you guys.